The atoms that ask the question.
You are not really asking, what happens after you die? You are asking, what happens to everything you are made of? Strip away the fear, the hope, the myths, and the question becomes precise and physical. When a human life ends, where do the pieces go? Physics answers without hesitation. Nothing disappears. Not a single atom vanishes. Not a fraction of energy is lost. The universe does not erase it, rearranges. What you experience as a solid, continuous self is at the deepest level a temporary arrangement. Your body is not a fixed object, but a pattern of atoms held together by forces, chemistry, and biological processes that have been running uninterrupted for years. Those atoms were not created for you, they are ancient. Some were forged in stars that exploded long before the earth existed. They passed through oceans, rocks, plants, and other living things before briefly forming you. You do not own them, you borrow them. Your body is not a container but a flow, more like a whirlpool than a statue. As long as conditions allow, the pattern holds. When they no longer do, the pattern dissolves. Death, from the perspective of physics, is not a dramatic event. Biology marks it with a stopped heart. Medicine marks it with silent neurons. Law marks it with paperwork. Physics marks nothing. At the moment life ends, no particle notices. No law changes. The atoms behave exactly as they did a second before. Carbon remains carbon. Electrons remain electrons. The universe does not register a loss because nothing fundamental has been removed. Life was never a substance added to matter. It was a process matter was performing. Death is simply the moment that process stops. Energy follows the same rule. While you live, energy flows through you continuously. Chemical energy from food becomes motion, heat, electrical signals. Heat leaks into the air. Motion slows. Nothing is stored permanently. Everything is transferred. When you die, this flow ends. Warmth dissipates. Chemical bonds relax. Energy spreads into the environment and becomes indistinguishable from every other exchange happening everywhere in the universe. Energy does not leave as a soul. It does not carry identity. It simply obeys conservation. This is where discomfort begins. Atoms continuing. Energy redistributing this does not sound like survival. It does not preserve memory, personality, or awareness. And that reaction reveals the real question. You are not asking about matter. You are asking about experience, about consciousness, about the feeling of being here. Physics does not deny that this feeling is real, but it refuses to treat it as separate from the physical world. Consciousness is something the universe does when matter is arranged in an extremely specific way. When that arrangement can no longer sustain itself, experience does not travel elsewhere. It stops. The idea of nothing troubles us because we try to imagine it as something we will experience. But there is no experience of non-experience. Before you were born, you were not waiting in darkness for billions of years. You were not aware of absence. The universe existed, time passed, events happened, and you are simply not part of it yet. Death is not entering a void, it is leaving the stage. From this view, impermanence does not drain life of meaning. It sharpens it. A phenomenon does not need to last forever to be real. A process does not need an eternal audience to matter. For a brief interval in cosmic history, the universe arranged itself into a form that could look back and ask, what would happen when it ended? That moment occurred. Nothing can undo that fact. So what happens when you die? The pattern called you stops. The atoms continue. The energy redistributes. The universe goes on exactly as before. And yet something remains undeniable. For a short time, matter became aware of itself through you. That awareness does not survive, but it happened. And in a universe ruled by conservation and causality, what has happened can never be erased. Consciousness, meaning, and the absence of cosmic comfort. Atoms alone would make this story simple. But there is a complication that refuses to be ignored. You are aware, not merely alive, not merely reacting, but experiencing. Light becomes color, sound becomes meaning. Electrical activity becomes memory, fear, joy, regret. Through you, the universe is not only behaving, it is noticing. This is the part people hope survives death, not matter, not energy. The witness, physics does not call consciousness an illusion. Pain hurts, love matters, meaning is real, but physics is uncompromising about one thing. Consciousness is not a separate ingredient added to matter. There is no awareness particle, no roaming essence waiting to depart the body. Every observation points in one direction. Consciousness appears when matter is organized in a very specific, highly complex way, and it disappears when that organization fails. Damage the brain and the self fragments, alter chemistry and personality shifts, stop the process entirely and experience ends. Not because something escapes, but because nothing is running anymore. This is why the idea feels like loss. The universe does not preserve awareness out of fairness. It does not reward existence with continuation. It treats consciousness as rare, conditional, and temporary. That feels harsh because humans evolved to fear annihilation. The dread of death is not philosophical, it is biological. Organisms that did not fear disappearance did not survive. Physics does not soften this fear. It does not promise comfort. It only describes what happens. Many assume that if consciousness ends, meaning collapses with it. But permanence has never been the source of meaning. A song is not meaningless because it ends. A conversation is not empty because it concludes. Meaning does not wait for eternity to validate it. Meaning exists while something is happening. Experiences do not require infinite duration to be real. They require occurrence. Much of the anxiety surrounding death hides an unspoken demand that the universe must remember us, that there must be a permanent witness, a cosmic recorder, an eternal awareness to confirm that our lives counted. Physics rejects this entirely. Events do not need to be remembered forever to have happened. Reality is not a performance requiring an audience. Your thoughts were real because they occurred, not because they will be preserved. Time adds to the illusion. Consciousness experiences time only forward. Memory accumulates. Anticipation reaches ahead. From inside awareness, its own ending feels like falling off the edge of existence. But from outside, from the universe's perspective, there is no edge. There is only a finite segment of time during which experience occurred. When it ends, there is no later moment in which loss is felt. Fear belongs only to the living. This is why nothingness is a misleading word. Darkness is an experience. Silence is an experience. Emptiness is still something. Non-experience is not a state you enter. When consciousness stops, there is no one left to notice absence. The universe does not replace awareness with nothing. It simply stops generating awareness in that form. This view offers no reunion, no continuation of identity, no hidden observer carrying the story forward. But it also removes something else. There is no eternal punishment, no infinite regret, no suffering stretched endlessly beyond the final moment. There is only what was lived. For some, this realization is devastating. For others, it produces a quiet shift. If this is not a rehearsal for eternity, if awareness is not a preview of something larger, then this life is not a waiting room. It is the event itself, not a test, not a preparation. The only time consciousness happens is now. At that point, the original question begins to dissolve. What happens when you die gives way to something sharper and more unsettling. What does it mean that you are alive at all? The answer does not point beyond life. It points directly into it. The quiet immortality of participation. By now, the conclusion should feel precise rather than shocking. There is no evidence that the stream of awareness called you survives death. No carried forward observer. No private continuity after the machinery stops. Identity ends when the process that sustains it ends. And yet, this is not disappearance in the way we instinctively imagine it. Human language confuses identity with existence. We speak as if to exist means to remain the same forever. Physics tells a different story. Existence means participation. Your identity is a particular pattern, memories, habits, preferences, inner narration, maintained only as long as conditions allow. When the pattern fails, it ends. But participation does not end with identity. Every atom that once formed a thought, every interaction you were part of, continues forward in the universe as unfolding. Nothing in physics is undone. There is no reset. The universe does not forget. Every event leaves traces, not as memory, but as altered reality. Particles occupy different positions than they otherwise would have. Other minds change course because of words you spoke or actions you took. Chains of cause and effect propagate outward long after you are gone. Even if every record of you vanished, the universe would still be different because you were here. That difference is permanent. This is not immortality as tradition imagines it. There is no awareness enjoying continuation, no self-traveling forward through time. There is only the fact of having occurred. You persist not as a subject, but as an element of history that cannot be removed. The universe contains you in the same way it contains every past event, not as a living witness, but as an irrevisible fact. This often feels insufficient because what people seek in immortality is reassurance. They want confirmation that their suffering was noticed, that their love mattered, that their existence was validated by something larger. Physics offers no such comfort. The universe does not reward, it does not judge, it is not impressed. Meaning is not assigned from above or preserved elsewhere. And yet within this indifference lies relief. If the universe does not evaluate your life, then your life is not a performance. You are not accumulating cosmic credit. You are not auditioning for permanence. Meaning is not postponed. It happens locally, between people, inside moments, during experiences, exactly where it always has. Seen this way, consciousness is not the universe's default state. It is an exception. Most of reality is silent. Most matter is unaware. Most time passes without experience. A conscious life is not a step towards something greater. It is a rare configuration in which the universe briefly becomes self-aware. That rarity does not diminish life. It intensifies it. Endings are not defects in stories. They are what give stories shape. Without an ending, urgency disappears. Choice loses weight. Finitude is not a flaw in life. It is the condition that makes moments matter. If experience were endless, nothing would be precious. So what happens when you die? The universe does not dim. Time does not pause. Reality continues without interruption, but something extraordinary has already taken place. For a short interval, matter arranged itself into a form that could ask what would happen when it ended. That questioning mattered not because it echoes forever, but because it happened at all. You do not survive as a witness, but you are not erased. You are part of the unbroken chain of events that make the present what it is. No afterlife, no oblivion to fear, no cosmic recognition. Just this: for a while, the universe understood itself through you. And that fact, once true, can never become untrue.